Alright, so this is my final coding project. Let's start with the card class that I created. It has the fields name, suit, and value. We define them here, and then I went ahead and had the value get assigned based on the name passed inside of it. So I did a switch case, just in case the user doesn't pass it in lowercase, I switch it to lowercase, and then based on the number it gets, or based on the name, it returns value. And then I use a describe method that prints out the card plus name of suit and then the value it holds. And then here are the getters and setters for suit, value, and name. Okay, let's move on to the deck class. Here we we have our I'm creating a cards array list, and then I create strings, array list strings, lists of strings with card names and suits. Add the names here and add the suits here, and then I used a for loop within a for loop to add. First it goes through all the names and card names, then it steps in and does the suits and adds it for each card name using a for loop within the for loop. So that's how that gets done here. Thought it might save a little bit of time. And then I use a describe method, so that basically just loops through, calls on the card class and uses the card describe. And then because it's a collection, I can get away with just doing a shuffle of the cards on a collection. So that saved a lot of time. Now for the draw method, call a card, this.cards, and we move the first card on top of the deck, and then we return it with that. And then just our getters and setters for the cards. Okay, here's our player class. So we start with defining a field for the hand, and then we have the score, and then the last thing is the player's name. So here's the class methods. First we have a describe, so I adjusted this a little bit, but we do the player, their name, and then we print out their hand, and then I put in these line breaks. We then use a for loop and call the card.describe method to print to the screen, which we'll see in a little bit. Next we have the flip method. Here we basically go inside the flip, and kind of like we did with the draw, we remove the top card from the hand. Here's our draw method, very similar, but instead of doing the work here, we call on the deck method that we defined and draw it that way. And then our increment score, we just do a score plus plus. They just increases the score by 1. So here's our getters and setters for everything. Now let's get into the app. Okay, so instantiate the deck in 2 players, and then we shuffle the deck. So create a game deck, shuffle it, create a new player, player 1, and name him player 1. Player 2 is named player 2. Now we use a traditional for loop, iterate 52 times, calling the draw method. So we loop through starting at 0, go to 52, stop before it. And for the even numbers, the even draws, the player 1 gets a card, odd draws, player 2 gets a card. I show each player's hand here using the describe just to make sure everything looks good. And then I use a traditional for loop, iterate 26 times, and call the flip for each player. So we flip each dealt a card, and then I basically just did some nice processing in here. We'll see it in a sec. And based on whose card gets drawn or who has a higher value, either player 1 gets a point, player 2 gets a point, or it's a draw, no points awarded. At the end of it, we print the final results, display each player's score, and determine who won, if it's player 1, player 2, or a draw. So let's go ahead and run it. Scroll to the top. So here's player 1 hand. Here's player's 2 hand. And then it goes through all the battles. Battle 1 through 26 down here. And we can see player 1 got 17 points, player 2 got 8 points, and the winner is player 1. That's that.